Finally, we get a new Republican, James Monroe. He won by a long shot against Rufus King. Monroe just got done with a goodwill tour. No other president has done that since President George Washington. One Boston newspaper said that we are going to enter an era of good feelings. Once again, in 1820, he was re-elected, and now our nation will start to build. Problems with political parties are dying down, but problems across the nation are rising. Each of these representatives have their own section of the nation. John C. Callahan spoke for the South. He had a strong voice and made some people uncomfortable when he spoke. Daniel Webster spoke for the North. Later, he became the Senator for Massachusetts. The last one was Henry Clay. He came from the West. He also was a war hawk of the war in 1812. After the War of 1812, our three leaders are facing an economic problem. The main problem was that we didn't have a national bank. The charter of 1811 for the bank ran out. So with Republican power, we were able to set up a new national bank. This bank helped out many people with their growing business like me. There were more problems to come. After the War of 1812, the foreign trade, especially Britain, was not going good. In 1815, Britain found out that they could sell cheap to us and still make a lot of money. They called us dumping. All of this made New England business go downhill. The South saw all the tariffs as a rip-off. They thought it made us Northerners rich, and we were trying to find a new way to steal money, but it wasn't. Henry Clay saw a big conflict and saw it needed to be fixed. He saw that we called ourselves Northerners, and the Southern folks called themselves Southerners, and same for the Westerners. This conflict rose in Congress as well. His solution fixed most of the debate on which side was better. Word is out that Canada is now self-governed. After a ruling by the British, Canada was divided up into Lower and Upper Canada to separate the French-speaking and the English-speaking. They were ruled separately. The French Canadians and the English Canadians continued to distrust one another, and there was still much conflict in Canada. Eventually, through peaceful discussion and solutions, Canada became a dominion of Great Britain and gained self-rule. Later, the other provinces, New Brunswick, Ontario, and Quebec, joined as well. Later on, all the other provinces would join the Dominion. A governor-general represented the British ruler but had limited power and had really no say in the governing of the nation. A lot is going on. We just got word that slowly but surely Mexico is gaining confidence and almost has a constitution. They finally won their independence after 300 years of Spanish rule. Venezuela defeated Spanish forces and gained their own independence around the same time. Other Latin Americas have followed suit and eventually have managed to win their own freedom. New republicans modeled their constitution based on the United States. These new nations have a hard time setting up their government as they have little experience in self-government. All of these nations have fought so hard in their independence, but now they are getting themselves in much discontent as there are huge divisions between social classes and economic problems as a result. At the same time, many previously enslaved African Americans have been living safely in Florida. Eventually, 1,000 African Americans made their way and began living in the Negro Fort. It provided them with protection they desperately needed. General Andrew Jackson wanted Spain to demolish the Negro Fort and have the African Americans living there return to slavery. Spain refused and Jackson attacked. Despite his aggressive attacks from Native American gunboats, he sailed up the muddy Apalachicola River. The residents of the Negro Fort did not give up without a fight. They fought back hard as they were determined to never be taken back into slavery. Eventually, the Americans loaded the cannon with a heated ball, which they fired into the fort within seconds. The fort was destroyed. The few defenders who remained alive had to surrender. The African Americans were willing to fight hard for their freedom. Eventually, Spain gave Florida to the United States and received $5 million for it. This was called the Adams-Onis Treaty. The black settlers were forced to flee their land and homes in order to be safe. While this was happening, Russia, Prussia, Australia, and France wanted to help Spain regain their colonies in Latin America. The British and Americans did not like the idea of European nations trying to take over the Western Hemisphere. President Monroe stated in a foreign policy known as the Monroe Doctrine that America would not interfere with the affairs of European nations and warned them not to interfere with new nations of Latin America. Britain supported the statement and had a navy strong enough to stop the Europeans from interfering with the Americas.